everyone, and welcome back to the Esports.net recap show. My name is Oliver Bass, otherwise known as Bass from the Past, joined alongside by none other than Pyro J, and this is a show recapping key moments and key events from around the world of esports in the last week. And Pyro, today, we're not necessarily going to be covering just esports. We also want to talk about potentially some strategies to the esports here, as we're going to go over the top landing spots in Warzone 2.0. Warzone 2.0, a recent addition to the esports scene. Warzone 1.0, a massively successful game, which then got, as we said, a sequel, Warzone 2.0, which came out with the last Call of Duty as well. And now we've got our top 5 drop spots as done by the guys over at esports.net. So let's recap those. Let's go through them. Pyro, why don't you start off this list?
Yeah, happy to. I'm going to start off the list, Bass, with pretty much the highest point of the map, the one you see first. If you want to land quickly and move from there, you want to start at the Zaya Observatory. I think this is a great location for players that don't want to spend a lot of time at the highest point when you're parachuting down. You want to land quick. You want to gear up. If you're feeling confident about running in lightweight fashion and not trying to stay your starting point for a long time, you can hit the observatory quick, grab some loot, and then scatter out. I think that's a pretty good reason for observatory being high on the list.
Absolutely. Again, a good vantage point. In comparison, you could also try to go somewhere a little bit more remote, like Rohan Oil. It's a POI on the edge of the map, which means that there's a decent amount of loot, but there's also a lot of space around you. So once you're equipped, once you're ready to go, you got a really good ability to just kind of move straight on into the rest of the map. Speaking of the rest of the map itself, Mazrah actually has a city dedicated to it as well. Another one of the POIs here is going to be Mazrah, or Mazrah City, which is really popular just because it's a massive location. The amount of loot there combined with the different parts of the POI, whether it's tall skyscrapers or just random buildings like office buildings where you'll be able to find loot, there's a varying amount of loot here, which is really good for the players. The ability to drop into a hot point very quickly, go out, and again, in comparison to what we were just talking about with Rohan Oil, there's a lot of other POIs surrounding it, so makes it a rather interesting drop spot.
It does, but let me take it another lane as well. Hydro. Okay, this I think is one of the most aesthetically pleasing maps because it incorporates that new water and river component and the boats, as well as having so many vehicle options. Okay, I think Hydro's probably, if you're looking for a fun time, you're gonna drop it there because it's just known for having all the vehicles, all the contracts, all the loot. It's got pretty much anything of the action so far, as it might also be a low landing spot, but I think since it's one of those different locations, you can still get there in enough time to do some damage. And rounding out that list, Bass, and I heard this was one of the ones you thought was interesting, is Akdar Village. Another landing spot, and it's kind of unassuming, right? It's not maybe like the shining star of points on the map, but it's worth some interest because it's packed with like these full spots of loot. And because it's kind of like a diamond in the rough, it can work out and play in big favor for some players.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. Personally, as of this top 5 list, this is the one that I would probably be dropping at pretty much every time. Akdar's got a lot of really interesting parts within the POI, like you said. The town square is really open. You have the ability to fight throughout that, but if you want to just kind of go around the outskirts, there's some houses up on the hill towards the south. There's a couple of connecting buildings that make it really easy to navigate. A big thing for Akdar is that it's very similar to some of the other places we have mentioned. I would say like Al Mazrah City, where there's a lot of connections, but again, a little bit more low-key. Al Mazrah City, obviously going to be a very hot drop spot in comparison to Akdar, which, again, not going to be uncontested, but might be able to survive a little bit more of the heat and play a little bit more of an easy ability versus trying to fire up towards the skyscrapers when people will have a better vantage point on you. Personally, that's what I would take as my favorite. Pyro, where are you leaning towards?
Yeah, you mentioned the vantage points, and listen, Hydro's sitting right under that main vantage point of the observatory, but it's got the danger. That's where I'm going, Bass. Okay, I'm trying to hop in a boat and get my way out of there. I'm trying to hit up the vehicles. That, I swear, in Warzone 1, that's what I did all the time, was find the big hills, one at the dam that had the huge truck, hop it in, see how many people I could run over. Is it strategic? Maybe not, but is it arguably the most fun? I would argue so. So you're not going to get Pyro away from Hydro. That much I'll tell you, Bass.
All right, you'll take the more fun pick. I'll take the maybe a little bit more strategic. But hey, anyway, you play Warzone 2. It is out now. We've been talking about it for a couple of weeks here, so go and try it out. A lot of good reviews coming out from Warzone 2. Speaking of good reviews, let's talk about what has been probably one of the most highly anticipated events of this entire month, the RLCS Fall Major in Rotterdam. And well, we have got none other than Gen.G Mobile One Racing as your winner. This was a 4-day event going through both a group stage, which was a Swiss stage, as well as a single elimination playoff. And at the end of this one, Gen.G Mobile One came out on top. That is a team of apparently Jack, Noli, and Chronic. And this one hits home for both of us, as we were not only two people that are involved within the Rocket League scene, but we also were literally sitting down together watching this on our television, being able to watch this one back and go, absolutely apoplectic, because again, we can't really overstate the significance of Gen.G doing this. This is some dominance I don't think really anyone was expecting coming into this 22-23 season.
No one was expecting, and it's almost unprecedented, right?
Yep.
How many times do we see a team, by the way, no less two players moving from EU to NA? This is cross-region transfer, picking up the bubble player Chronic, and their worst performance of the fall split out of all three regionals was second place, meeting the grand finals at every step and then winning the major, backing up that talk. You have so many storylines between the cross-region transfer, between apparently Jack being called out as an onliner and underperforming at lands, but yet they step up to the plate and hammer home a massive win. So it's big for Gen.G, and because this is such a massive storyline, Bass, we have to see what happens in these follow-up splits, if they can really hold together that dominance. But Bass, there's a lot of other things happening as well. I want to talk about EU and the case between Carmine Core and Moist Esports. They started out in the Swiss format, and Carmine Core swept Moist Esports. So when they met in the quarterfinals, you thought you could almost expect what would happen, right?
Yeah, you would imagine so, but the big thing is that that's not only a rivalry that started in Swiss, but it's a rivalry that goes way back. Vatira, previously on Moist Esports, ended up leaving for Carmine Core, and then subsequently, because they needed to make a spot on Carmine Core for Vatira, they ended up kicking Astral, who went to Moist Esports. So this is a rematch in so many different ways. It's a rematch as in they get it already in the Switch, which they had met up multiple times before that, but then when they meet in the playoffs, like you said, completely different story. Moist Esports ends up taking them down, and Moist Esports, again, a very good roster. They ended up making it all the way to second place as a run, but most people didn't really expect them to. They were in the lower seeds coming into this event out of EU, failed to really show off in any of the online events, but again, Rise and Joy have proven themselves to be players at a LAN performance almost every single time, and Astral, their new addition, did the exact same thing, putting up what I believe should have been at least in contention for offensive MVP for the entire event. Regardless, the event was crazy, a lot of interesting storylines, and again, like you talked about, it's really big for this Gen.G team, because not only is this a roster that was trying to prove themselves, really show that they can hang with the best of the best, this is the first event Gen.G's ever been at. They are a brand new organization of Rocket League, so to put their stamp on their very first event like this, Gen.G might be around for a long time to come.
Yeah, and hey, you know what? Don't forget about Moist Esports as well. They were the grand finals, and they're kind of a newer esports org as well. It proves that maybe any org could make their proving grounds here. I don't want to leave without talking about SAM, the South American region as well, because coming into this major, the club, the 3-time regional winner, one of the regionals, they didn't drop a single game in the playoffs. They asserted an era of dominance in SAM. And then they're not the highest performing South American team. Team Secret instead not only makes the top 8, beating out the club, but then making the top 4. I just want to say that because it's a great representation for Sam. And what they continue to do is not only in-house have these great teams, but also be outsourcing the great teams that they have between True Neutral and Furia. It also speaks to what's going to happen in the Winter Major. Is Team Secret all of a sudden the better team? It sets up a very interesting winter split for South America, or the summer for them.
Yeah, it's a summer for them, and it's barely going to be winter for us. The Winter Major all the way out in April. It's going to be a little while till we see these guys compete on LAN again. But like you said, storylines out the wazoo here. Are we going to see Gen.G with the same sort of dominance? Are we going to see a revitalization from our top 2 teams of last year, G2, who didn't even make playoffs here, and then BDS, the world champions, who didn't even make the event in the first place? So keep your eyes on Rocket League. There's a lot to come, and keep your eyes on the show, because that is all that we have got for this week. This has been the Esports.net recap show. My name is Oliver Bass. That has been Pyro J. We hope you guys enjoyed, and stay tuned for even more content next week. Have a good one.